Hello and welcome to another knitting pod. I am Lena and I am coming to you from a car today. It was either tape it in the car for the 30 minutes I have or not tape at all. So I chose taping in the car. My podcast has gone from well thought out and planned and adequate time has been allotted to just do it when I can. And if you are still with me, I really appreciate it. I really do. It would be very easy to stop, but I was telling my son it's hard to build something and it's easy to throw it away, and I really enjoy our time together. So if you are still showing up when I do, I really appreciate your viewership and your friendship and your sharing my knitting life with me. So anyway, I actually do have updates for you today. I really hope that this is not an annoying venue for this podcast. I was going to drive to my friend's house, but my son is at school for 45 minutes. And by the time I get there and back, I would have time for like a 20-minute podcast. So this way we have a little bit more time to hang out. So let's do it. I am going to show you my completed socks. My favorite sock pouch. I finally finished, not finally, because I don't think it took that long. I finished my breiten socks by Summer Lee. They are a pattern in her sock knitting book. I don't even remember what that sock knitting book is called, but it is all about socks. And this was a pattern that I thought was so cute. And there were several things about them that were new to me. So I'm really glad I did it. Let me show you, and then we can talk about it a little bit. This was the first sock. My daughter was wearing these today, so there's random stuff stuck to the bottom. But here's the first one. So cute. The top is all ribbed, and then on the foot, just the top is ribbed, and then the bottom of the foot is in stockinette. I did my typical shadow wrap heel by Earth Tones Girl. I have no desire to go looking for another heel now that I have one that I know how to make that fits perfectly. It's just any sock pattern I find, I just insert this heel in it. What I love about it is just how colorful and joyful it is. I had never knit a ribbed sock before, and this fits my daughter absolutely perfectly. My sock circumference is 56. However, for myself, my ankles are just toothpicks. So with ribbing, I feel like I could go down even more. But for her, this 56-inch circumference fit just perfectly. And then my second sock, last time we met, we were trying to figure out what colors I was going to use, and these are the colors I went with. I actually love the way it turned out. Now, this white, I'm not sure if it's sock yarn. I actually think it probably is not, but I just decided to take the risk. I didn't want to go buy any more yarn, so this was, what's that brand? High Country Wool. Every time I forget it, but then I remember. I looked it up, and I believe I bought the non-sock yarn. It was it's like a 2-ply just wool. It is what it is. Luckily, I know the pink is sock yarn, and so is the purple, so hopefully it lasts. I don't know. My daughter was on a camping trip with school this week, and she just got back, and I asked her to try them on, and they looked so outrageously cute on her that I'm like forcing her to keep them. She's very much like, no, it's yours, mama, you made them, and it drives me crazy. I just am like, they're so cute on her. So I'm so happy I just grabbed them off of her feet so I could show you guys, but I'm going to give them back to her. It just made me so happy. She's been wanting a pair of socks. I tried to make her a pair of socks, and they were an epic fail because they were color work, and I'm really bad at sock color work. I don't think I'm bad. I just haven't mastered the technique of it. So being able to make her these colorful socks and letting her have them is just making me really happy, especially because they fit her better than they fit me. I really like a ribbed sock. I'm a real big fan. It definitely takes longer. Knit, knit, purl, purl is a lot slower than all stockinette. But I have said this before and I'll say it again. I just don't think knitting is, I think it's kind of a contradiction to feel rushed. And so I purposely try to bring slowness and patience to my knitting as a practice. So I will absolutely make ribbed socks again. There's just something very warm about these socks. I don't know if it's because I really don't know why. Because it's not like mosaic knitting where there's a lot of double layered yarn. It's just they're very warm. I really cannot tell you why, but they're very cozy and warm. What else was I going to say? Oh, I'm very worried about wet blocking them, and therefore I have not wet blocked them yet, because if you are a longtime viewer, you know there was a really cute pair of socks I made where the cuff was ribbed and rainbow striped, and then the body was like a really, really dove gray, like a light gray. And when I washed them, I don't know why, very stupidly, just thought because there was only like a few rows that it wouldn't bleed. Now, how does that make any sense? It does not make any sense. So they bled and ruined the entire sock, and I was so, so sad. The lucky thing about that was early in my sock knitting journey, and they didn't fit great. They were way too loose. So at least I feel like they weren't like a perfectly fitting pair of socks anyway. And I was telling my cousin this. I feel like socks particularly, but really knitting in general, it's a lot of trial and error. And the only way to do trial and error for knitting is to actually make things that don't turn out great. I cannot tell you how many sweaters, how many shawls, all sorts of varying levels of trial and error. I still love those pieces. Are they perfect? Absolutely not. Like, it took many shawls for me to realize the shapes that I actually like to live in and wear. It took me many cardigans, if you've gone back to my cardigan episode, to figure out what cardigans I like. I'm going to take a sip of water. My voice is super dead. I'll tell you why later. But anyway, what was I talking about? Oh, trial and error. So sometimes you're going to make things that are a bust and you're going to be pissed because you spent time and effort and money. But I just don't think in life there's any way around that. For instance, if you are going to try to become a writer, you're going to write a lot of things that don't see the light of day. If you are a dancer, you're going to practice and practice and practice, and that's going to feel wasted, but really it's just part of developing skills. And even though knitting might not be something you're doing for money, or if you love it, there's going to be trial and error, and I think that's okay. I think that's just part of it. Like this cardigan I'm wearing. This is the first cardigan I made, I believe, and there are so many things wrong with it. You have no idea, but I love it, and it's got my memories, and it's sentimental, and it's also extraordinarily comfortable, so I wear it all the time. I would, by the way, I still really want to make another one of these in neutrals, but I don't know when that's going to happen. I'm not in a garment making mood right now. I think because life is very, very busy, I just do not feel like swatching or doing anything like that. And I also don't feel equipped for big projects. The reason I keep knitting socks is because it feels like socks are exactly what I want to knit right now. This is what I love about knitting. There's so many different ways to knit to fit your life at any given moment. I've had times in my life where I have a lot more bandwidth and I feel like I can be creative and thoughtful and take my time. Right now, it's just not one of those times. So I'm enjoying the sock knitting life. And I can tell you a couple things I love about sock knitting. It can be challenging on so many fronts. So just figuring out the fit is going to take you numerous socks, and that's a challenge. Then, like, technique wise, there's infinite, just like with anything, there's infinite ways to combine techniques. It's the same with socks, except it's on a much smaller scale. So it just feels like fun size, literally. Like, this was, I felt like I learned how to change colors smoothly so that everything looks the way I wanted. That skill could translate to a striped sweater, but doing it in a sock, it just feels like a much more manageable undertaking in life right now. I do have to say, there were many times, like the heel, because she in this sock in the pattern does an afterthought heel. So in an afterthought heel, you're basically knitting an entire tube and then inserting the heel at the end. I had no desire to do that. So I had to use my own tiny little brain and manage the colors here on the switch, and it was a little tricky. I feel like this sock generally came out better. I wish I had taken better notes as to what I did, because as you can see, like the entire sock, the body ends with this green stripe, and then I went straight into the yellow toe. This, because it was different yarn, the sock wasn't getting long enough. So there's this random pink bit before the purple. So I'll show you in comparison. So see how this goes from that last stripe straight to the toe. This does not. I could have fussed with it and ripped back and forth. No, I don't live that kind of life, y'all. I am just not. It does not need to be perfect. And I guarantee you, anyone looking at these socks on her feet is not going to be like, ooh, that doesn't exactly mirror. Nope, not for me. Perfection is not a journey I have gotten off that train. So anyway, how cute are these? The Breton socks, Breton. I don't think you can buy these patterns from the book as singles. I think you do have to buy them. You have to buy the book. And I've said this before, the book is totally worth it. If you have the desire to explore sock knitting, there's just so many options, so much inspiration, so many little tips, like all of this, how nicely the stripes came out is because of all the tips in her book. So I am super happy with these. So happy, and love that my daughter's going to get to wear them. Now, what did I cast on? Of course, a sock. And if you've been watching my last episodes, I told you I was going to knit this one, and it's sort of a miracle that I said I was going to do it, and I still felt like doing it when the time came, but it really did, and I wasn't in the mood to overthink, so I just cast them on. These are the dumpling socks by Jessie Made Designs in this gorgeous yarn my cousin got me from Alaska. It's hand dyed with some mud or something, and it's just so beautiful, and I really wanted to make like a special pair of socks. And even the pattern, she actually made them in a very similar colorway, and I fell in love with these socks from the moment I saw them, and I'm so excited to have cast them on. I'm not very far. These are different from my usual because they're ankle socks, like really short. I'm going to put a picture up so you can see them. They're so stinking cute. They're ankle socks with this cute ruffle and lace and baubles as the top of the foot. I've never knit a textured like lace sock or anything. I'm not a huge lace person, but something about this sock is so precious in this tongue-in-cheek kind of way. Like, it feels like, this is what I think Jessie Made does so well, is she'll take something and put a modern twist on it. So there's something playful and ironic about them because of the ruffle. I don't know. I have no idea how absurd I will look in them because I have a giant foot, you guys. I wear a size 11 foot and I am 5'3". So it's just comical because my foot just grew enormous, but then my body did not grow proportionally. So I have these giant weird feet. So I don't know if this adorable ruffled sock is going to make me look super strange, but I don't care. I wear socks in my house all the time because I live in Colorado where it's cold, and I like socks. And ever since I started knitting socks, I love wearing my hand knit socks. At first it was a definite transition. I was somebody who was like, they don't feel like my favorite store-bought socks. And now they don't still, but they feel different in the most glorious, cozy way. So I am a total convert, but it did take me time. And that I tell you so that if you're in the same boat, proceed, just keep making them and you will fall in love with them. And then they will be like all your hand knits, precious. So anyway, back to the sock. Has a very small twisted rib cuff, which I think is really cute. Then you have to put in a lifeline. If you see that speckled bit, so I've never done a lifeline like this. What she says to do is to just knit with another strand held together. That way you know where to pick up your stitches to do your ruffle. And I think it's because when you do it that way, that you see the little colored bits, the ruffle is going to be on that row, so it's going to cover it up. That's my hope. But I didn't want to use like a bright neon yarn or something and have that color peeking through. So I picked it's a speckled yarn that's really similar in color. So it blends in enough to where even if some of it is peeking through, it's not going to be obvious at all. So that is why I picked that. I can still see it, but it's not obvious. So I just don't know. I've never done a lifeline like that, but I wouldn't even call that a lifeline. I guess it's just to know where you need to pick up your stitches. So anyway, so this is the top. You really cannot see the lace pattern yet. Can you see this tiny bauble? Do you see it? It's so stinking precious. I love it. I always do my baubles by Andrea Mowry's method from the Golden Hour shawl because you don't have to turn your work. You knit 3 in 1 stitch, then you knit backwards. So you're basically purling those stitches, but without turning your fabric. So you knit backwards, then you knit again, and then you pass them over the 3 over 1, and then you have this cute little bauble. It's my favorite way to make a bauble. I don't fuss with crochet hooks or switching the fabric back and forth. It's the best way to knit a bauble, in my opinion, hands down. So if you need to look that up, and it's nice and round and perky. I've never made a bauble with such tiny needles, so it's so adorable. I can't stand it. And it has like little lace eyelets and some lace like V's and stuff. It's really too small to see at this point. I don't think you can see it, but I put a picture up so you can definitely see what I'm working towards. But I am so excited. This yarn is special to me. This pattern is special, and this bag that they live in, this cute little gift that my cousin sent me, it just feels very I don't know, to use the word for the 5th time, special. So anyway, that is what I am knitting now. I love it. We're going to the mountains tomorrow for spring break. We're going to ski, and we're going for a shorter time than we usually do. We all kind of begged my husband if it would be okay if we kind of compressed the trip a little, because our lives are so incredibly busy. And vacation is fun, but it's also exhausting. Like being outside of your, oh shoot. I'm gonna roll up this window. This is such a crazy episode. There's kids like walking to their cars and stuff, and I feel like a crazy person taping in my car. I don't want my voice to carry out the window. Anyway, what I was going to say is, vacation is exhausting. Like fun is exhausting, and I started out exhausted, and I'm more exhausted than when
Yeah, and it's close,
no.
as they always are.
My podcast. Oh, geez, Louise. Okay, it's still taping. I don't know what happened. My car's picking up. My car is picking up the audio. I hope you can still hear me. I'm going to pause it and make sure the audio didn't get messed up by the car turning on. So I will be right back. Okay, I'm back. It's all fine. I think you can still hear me, or you could still hear me at the end there. Yeah, so if you have been watching the last couple episodes, I finished my quarter and then I had 2 weeks off, one of which was the ski trip coming up. And then the last week was, I had so many grand plans, y'all. I was going to clean my whole house, throw away all the things that are needing to be purged out of the house. I was going to tend to all my little knitting projects. I was going to knit. I had so many grand plans, y'all, because it's been 3 months where nothing has been addressed. It's just been like managing all the things that have to be managed, whether it's school or kids or life, whatever. I do not know what I was thinking. I have done basically nothing. I have done not one bit of spring cleaning, have not tended to one knitting project. Those buttons did not get sewn on a cardigan. The things that needed to be frogged did not get frogged. The only thing I did was finish those socks and cast these on. It was basically like dentist appointment, taking the dog to the vet, taking my son to the orthodontist. It just such a bummer. But, what are you going to do? That's real life. I think I was delusional. I thought I thought a week was going to be like a month, and it just wasn't. It wasn't enough time, but such is life. I did get 2 hours on Wednesday, I want to say, and it was so precious to me. I got to finish the sock. I got to cast on this other sock, and I really tried. I think one thing I've been struggling with, which is funny because I've been recommending that book to you guys, 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Burkeman, which I loved. And I also loved his second book of essays called Meditations for Mortals or something. It's also on the same idea of time and human life and all this. Despite the fact of reading both of those books cover to cover, I still do not feel like I have any better grasp on not always feeling rushed. Like the whole point of that book is just how to prioritize the things in your life, because we have such limited time, and our denial of our limited time is what leads us to overcommit and do all these things. But none of it still led me to feel like I have enough time. And I'm trying so hard to be like, okay, when I'm setting aside 2 hours to really give myself to do what I want to do, I still have a hard time turning off that part of my brain that's like, oh, but you should be doing this and you should be doing that, and oh, that other thing hasn't been done. And I think it's just noise that's going to be there. And I've been trying to block it out and commit to doing what I want to do in that moment. Otherwise, decades could go by and you don't actually sit down and give yourself a few minutes to do what you want to do. So time has really been a struggle, but it was still a good week. I got to see several friends that I haven't seen since the beginning of the year, and that was lovely. And I'm just really lucky I have a very understanding husband, because he was like, I really want us to go on a hike together. And by the time that day came, I was so exhausted and I hadn't been sleeping great. And I said, would you be mad at me if I just stayed home and sat on the couch? And he was like, absolutely not. Of course not. And so that is what I did. And that 2 hours, even though I wished it was 2 days, it was precious. The other really fun thing that happened was yesterday, my son and I went to March Madness here in Denver. So the first round of March Madness is in various cities, and Denver was one of those cities this year. And it was yesterday, and oh my goodness, y'all, I don't know how many basketball fans there are out there, specifically college basketball, but if you are a college basketball fan, March Madness is everything. It is the pinnacle of the love for basketball. And we had tickets to both sessions, morning and evening. And it was 4 basketball games, basically back to back. So we left our house at 10 a.m. and we got home at about midnight. I cannot tell you how amazing and fun it was. It was just the two of us because my daughter was on a camping trip for school, like I said, and she was arriving back home right in the middle of the day. And she wouldn't have wanted to do that anyway. And my son and I, we love our college basketball so much. So my husband was so sweet that he got us amazing tickets. We were so close. They were the perfect tickets, especially since we basically were there 12 hours. It was amazing to have great tickets. And it was just so precious to me. Like now I'm at that age where, I told my husband, like, this is my most precious birthday gift, because time with him, with my son, is just, there's nothing more precious. It just feels so short now. He's finishing his freshman year in high school, and it's gone by so fast. If you have kids that are older, you know how fast high school goes, and it really does. And it just felt like these 12 hours to be with him, and he's my person. And we laughed and talked, and it was perfect. It was the perfect day. It was the perfect day. So honestly, I'm wrecked. I'm so tired right now because we stayed up so late, and I am not a stay up late kind of girl. I'm not someone who loves going to concerts or anything, but basketball, yes, I can do 12 hours of basketball, and I proved it to myself, and I'm really proud. I was really worried, that last game, it was Michigan versus the University of Colorado. Oops, sorry, I'm bobbling the camera, which is precariously propped up right now. Sorry, I'm off center, but there's just nothing to be done about it. Of course, I'm going to try to fix it. Is that better? It was UC San Diego, and it was such a good game. It was one of the biggest games of the first round, and it did not disappoint. It was so intense and fun. And anyway, it's just, one thing I did not anticipate about parenthood is, if you let it change you, it will, in the best way, maybe also in not good ways. I haven't thought about that. But before I had my son, I couldn't have cared less about basketball. It was just, I did not even, it just wasn't on my radar in any way, shape, or form. But his love of basketball, and my love of him is like an equation, leads to my love of basketball. And now it's not just I'll watch basketball because my kid likes it. It's I truly love it. And it was it's a gift that your kids can give you if you let yourself see them for who they really are and what they really love. It just, I don't know. It's so exciting. And I'm so grateful that we have this thing and that I've grown to love it as much, because it truly is magical. Sports are so magical in what they teach kids, but also just the experience, the energy, the people in the crowd. It's just a really fun and unique experience. So yeah, we did that yesterday. That was the highlight of my week. Today, I'm just trying to get my life together to leave town tomorrow because I don't feel ready at all. What else? Oh, let's talk about this book. This book, y'all. Oprah's book club for this month. First of all, I have so much to say. This book is spectacular. I really hope you read it. It is so good. And I was telling my daughter this morning, there's weird sounds from the wind outside. I was telling her that for years, I'd always feel like if I was reading something, I had to be listening to it because I needed to be doing something else at the same time. I was always trying to cram as much into my life as possible, reading and doing laundry, reading and knitting, reading and cooking dinner for everybody. It was always trying to multitask. And for some reason, going back to school, I reconnected to how much I love reading without doing anything else, because there's so much reading for school. And it's not like these things are on audiobook, right? These are scholarly articles or whatever, or chapters out of books. They're not, you're reading them. And it reignited my love for reading just on its own. And this is the first physical book. No, that's not true. I've read a lot of physical books lately, but this is the first physical book I've read in a long time where I have found myself unable to go to bed because I just am like, one more chapter, one more chapter, one more chapter. And the other day I found myself way too late because I could not put this down. And it felt like such a reconnection to a younger version of myself that loved to read physical books. This was before there were really audiobooks or Kindles or anything like that. I loved to read, like in college and in my early 20s before I had kids. And this book just made me rediscover the true joy of falling into a book and just single-mindedly doing that. I feel like this has been the year ever since I got off Instagram, canceled my Instagram account. I feel like it has renewed this sense of the joy of things that are just doing them alone without trying to squeeze in something else. Like you might feel like you're getting two joys at the same time when you're knitting and listening to an audiobook, but it's not the same as just being completely absorbed into a book. It's different and I love it still and I do it all the time, but it's different. And this book is so good in that it just reignited my love for reading physical books in bed. There's something that's unparalleled. And so I hope you read this book. It's so beautiful. It's so, I don't know. It's a really good book. I will make my daughter read this. I will let every friend I have borrow this because I actually bought it for a friend because when I heard her interview with Oprah, it reminded me of one of my really good friends. But I bought it and I was going to give it to her this week, but we couldn't get our schedules to line up. And then I just was like, oh, I'm just going to read one page. And I started and then I couldn't put it down. So that became a gift for myself, I guess. But I highly, highly recommend this book if you haven't read it. It's obviously not very thick, but it's really, really good. What else? Family-wise, it was a rough couple of weeks. One of my kids had a disappointment that they had been dreading for a really long time and hoping wouldn't ever happen. And anyway, I don't want to go into details about it, but it was a disappointment that really broke this child's heart. And there are certain, like, I would walk through fire to spare my children's pain. And when this thing happened, it was the most visceral pain I have felt because that child was so, so, so sad in a way that I've never seen them. And I would have done anything in that moment to take that pain to myself 10,000 times over. And then, he woke up the next day after processing it and was like, had worked through all the pain and come out the other side and felt sane and kind of cleansed through the fire and ready to move forward to the next, like to deal with it. And through that whole thing, I realized so much, y'all, about parenting and about life. I realized we want to spare our children all the pain. because it's so hard to see the people you love more than anything else hurt. And what I realized was in life, there is truly no way for these small humans to grow other than through pain. Pain is the only way we evolve. It's the only way we become the people that are better than the people that were in our skin the day before, the year before, the decade before. Nobody's growing through getting everything they want, that everything is working out just the way they want. When we have those major disappointments and heartbreaks in life, if we took all those and fixed them for our kids, we are literally robbing them of the pain of becoming who they are. And I knew that intellectually, but to see it, to see that my baby is capable of growth and fight and grit and resilience. How would you know that unless you had to find that grit and resilience in you? And if you're able to fix everything, they never find it. And it was like this, it went from an intellectual knowing to like a visceral knowing, and also just the seeing your child dig and find that in themselves is the most beautiful thing I've ever experienced. So much more beautiful than when everything's working out and they are jumping for joy because they've accomplished what they want to. I found that moment of seeing the growth and the digging deep and the character so much more beautiful, even though it was so much more painful, to say understatement. To see that was like, I don't know, it was like the Northern Lights or something spectacular. It felt like that to me. It was just like this total realization that this person that I thought I knew so well, we're both learning still about all the things that are still there and underneath waiting to bloom. And it was just this, from the most painful moment came one of the most glorious, beautiful moments. And I felt like I grew as a parent so much through that experience that I had to tell you guys about that. I really thought about you and I wanted to share it because I know a lot of you are parents and a lot of you either have older kids or little bitty kids or somewhere in the middle. And no matter how old your kids are, when their hearts are being broken and they're struggling in whatever they're struggling in, it is like physically painful for us as mothers or fathers or people who love kids. And I just do not, sometimes it is the darkest place that actually the most beauty comes from. So I had to share that with you. So all is well, but that really took a lot of emotional bandwidth, which is why I didn't tape that last week. Also, it's just become really hard to put out quality podcasts when my life is, number one, bonkers, and number two, I'm just not knitting very much compared to previous times. So I'm trying to find a new balance. I don't want to give up taping my podcast. I love it. I have found so much joy and connection in this space with all of you. You're truly, even when I'm not able to respond to comments in a timely fashion, like I love y'all. You're the best. I love this time. I'm just trying to figure out the best. I'm trying to figure out if I should keep taping as much as possible once a week, or if I should go to once every 2 weeks and do a more like thorough, well-planned podcast. I would love to hear what you think. I don't know what the right thing to do is, what you guys enjoy. Like, are you hating this, me being in the car? It is what it is. I mean, for me, I wanted to tape right now, and this is just how it worked out. But let me know in the comments if you think you would rather see less podcasts, but more thought out and planned, or shorter, more spontaneous podcasts more regularly. I would love to know what you think, because at the end of the day, these podcasts are for you as much as they are for me. Okay. I think that's all I have for today. I'm excited to go skiing, but I'm also excited to like knit and read more than I am skiing. That's a terrible thing to say, but it is true. But it'll be fun nonetheless. I hope you are well wherever you are. I hope you are hanging in there. I know there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world. I feel like I say this at the end of every podcast. I think you need to take care of yourselves. I think Oliver Berkman, the author I was talking about, that wrote 4,000 Weeks, he writes a newsletter that I love. I highly recommend going to his website and signing up for it. But he sent out an email newsletter, or it's more like an essay that he sends out once every, I don't know, couple weeks. And the last one that I remember, it was just so true, because he talks about how in this digital age when we're all so online and connected and there's just always news coming at us like a million miles an hour, it's easy to feel like your real life is the news, and you almost feel guilty when you're in your real life and not worrying about global events, because they're coming at you so hard and fast and constant. And he says to remember it's actually the opposite. Your life is your real life. Whatever's happening out in the world and all the bombardment of TikTok and Instagram or wherever, whatever platform you're on, is not the real world. And he called it the center of gravity of your life, like to remember your real life and to let your real life be your center of gravity, and not doesn't mean you shouldn't care or you shouldn't be paying attention, which I do believe you should be. But just don't feel guilty or needing to like constantly know everything all at once, because your whole life could go that way and you're not actually in your real life with your real people that you love and that light you up and that doing the things you want to do. So I thought it was just a beautiful reminder to live your real life, what's actually happening now, because I am very prone to catastrophizing and living in the future and worrying and worrying and worrying. And I don't want to do that. I want to be happy in the moment I have, because this is my life, the only life I get. I don't get to like do it again later. If I'm not paying attention to my people, my friends, my family, whatever, my passions, I don't get today back. If I spent half of it worrying, then that's half of my day that I just spent on things I wish I hadn't. So make sure you're living your real life. If you need to block out the current events sometimes for a week, if you can, live long and prosper, do it. I think there's a lot to be gained. So anyway, I hope you have a lovely weekend. I will not be here next week just because I will be out of town. So it'll be 2 weeks and I will see you then. I think it's April, which is bonkers. Let's not even get into that, how quickly this year is going by. The first quarter is already gone. Lord have mercy. Okay, y'all, I love you. Be well. Take care of yourselves. Happy knitting, and I will see you in 2 weeks. Bye.